Sometimes even good people can make a mistake. And when it happens, it's one of the most intense and emotional experiences of your life. It could be a DUI, or maybe you were in the wrong place with the wrong people at the wrong time. Or perhaps you just did something stupid at the spur of the moment without even thinking, and now you're in trouble with the law. Well, you need experienced legal help right away so you don't become a victim of the criminal justice system. Even good people can make a mistake, and if you, a friend, or a loved one has been accused of a crime, don't make another mistake by hiring the wrong attorney for the kind of help you need. You need to visit toddjohnslaw.com. That's toddjohnslaw.com, and then call Attorney Todd Johns today. Attorney Todd Johns has decades of experience helping good people like you who have made mistakes or bad decisions and will stand by you every step of the way. toddjohnslaw.com.
All right, hello, welcome to That's Enough Out of You. I am your warm and convivial host, Mr. Bill Rader, and joining me, my co-host, is Sean Kane. Sean, what's going on, buddy? How you doing?
What's up? It is warm, Bill. It's like a heat wave. It's, compared to where we've been.
I know. How about that?
We got like 35 today? 38, buddy. 38.
That's crazy.
Out of the negatives, we're out of the single digits, so it's like a heat wave.
It is. It's fantastic. I'm out there in my my Speedo and my tank top. So
too much information, Billy. Too much information.
Not quite. All right, Sean, we've got a very special guest today, brand new guest, someone we've never had on the program before, and it is not the legendary Pittsburgh Steelers defensive player, but we have Joe Green on with us. Joe, welcome to That's Enough Out of You.
Hey, thanks. Glad to be here. Yeah, that's my uncle.
All right. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So, Joe, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this this mess that we're all in with the JFK research?
I mean, it basically all starts. I mean, I've told this story before, but sort of the short version is that I had read. I happened upon an article in a book called Secret and Suppressed. That article was called The Black Hole of Guyana by a guy named John Judge.
Yeah, legend.
I'm so knocked out by that article that I just said, I got to meet this guy. And I found out that he was doing meetings every November in Dallas. And so one year I just drove up to the hotel where they were having it. I'm always early to stuff. So I got there in the morning, went to the breakfast room. There was John, and I sat there and talked to him for about 3 hours.
Wow.
And he just blew my head off. And just, I mean, that started me going. Because I grew up in kind of an academic household where conspiracy theories are not the sort of things that you talk about.
Right.
But I was always interested in the counterculture and the stuff that was going on in the 60s, and then to find out that, good Lord, it's way bigger than just the Kennedy assassination. I mean, it's every damn thing, which John was a big help in getting me there.
Yeah, John was a legend. I mean, his work was incredible, and your work, Joe, is really fabulous. I've been looking at a lot of your stuff, and I want to cover a lot of stuff tonight as much as we can. Because we talk a lot, like you said, about the JFK assassination. It's much bigger than that. We focus a lot on, JFK, but the other assassinations of the 60s are extremely important as well. And a lot of the other stuff that went on, because, this is the reason we're in this mess we're in today, which is a disaster at every level. But let's start with Ted Kennedy and Chappaquiddick, and let's go there, because that's something that we talked briefly on our podcast about, but we didn't go a deep dive like you did. And let's get into that, because once again, the official story is not the real story.
It's not. And it's pretty complicated because Ted himself is not giving a truthful representation of what happened either. I think there's sort of a dual conspiracy in that realm. But if I may, just to take it back one step.
Sure.
whenever I'm looking at these things, I try to do it as a continuum because I feel that there's a continuum of action that goes from World War II, but even somewhat beyond that, to today, where the
Right.
powers are entrenched. I mean, it's like when we overthrew Mossadegh, the guy who wrote up
Yeah.
plans are
Yeah.
Dulles. So it only makes sense that Allen Dulles is the guy who wrote the plans to overthrow Kennedy,
Yeah.
the foreign operation that goes domestic. And to look at all of the Kennedys, I think, if you ever seen the movie Executive Action?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic movie.
Yeah. So it's the first JFK conspiracy film with Burt Lancaster. And
Yeah.
scene in that movie where they're explaining to Will Geer why they have to do this. And he says, if we don't do this, you're going to have John
Dynasty.
60 and 64. You're going to have Bobby 68 to 76. And then you're going to have Teddy after that. And we're going to have 20 years of Kennedys.
Yeah.
And we are never going to get our war. We're not going to get all the things we want to get done.
Great point.
And I think that's kind of true. I mean, that
Yeah.
makes sense. I mean, their older brother died in World War II in a plane crash. Their older sister died in a plane crash. And John gets assassinated. Bobby tries to run. And on the day that he wins the California primary, he also gets assassinated. And so Ted, I think, has inherited the mantle at this point that if we're ever going to open this case again, if we're ever going to change the direction of the country, I think Teddy decides that he's going to do it. Now, the very first, what I consider to be the first attempt on Ted Kennedy is not at Chappaquiddick.
Right, it's the crash.
It's in 1964. Yes. It's just a few months after the Kennedy assassination, on the day that the Civil Rights Act was passed. So Ted Kennedy gets on a charter plane that crashes, kills 2 people in the car, breaks 3 vertebrae in his back. It's an amazing, and he barely survives. And I think that it's hard to ignore that is the day that the Civil Rights Act was passed. So, and then Chappaquiddick is interesting too, because it's July 18th, 1969, the moment that the car is going into the drink, the Apollo moon landing is happening that same weekend.
Wow.
Very, very curious thing. And then when you go later, that essentially the Chappaquiddick accident destroyed his opportunities of ever becoming president again, except that he did try to run again against Jimmy Carter. And then in November of 1979, a lady named Susan Oggood suddenly grabs a knife and tries to stab him at the White House, which is, again, it's another one of those little things that most people do not know about. It was not a big story. And then that woman, Susan Osgood, went to the same schools the Boiler Room girls went to. So just to give you the overview, we'll get into all the details of all this, but this is what it looks like. So Chappaquiddick, of course, we have to get into Watergate a little bit as well, because there's so many things that connect Watergate with what happened. So Chappaquiddick, Ted Kennedy, a couple of his lawyers, and some of the girls are having a party. And everything's, very relaxed. It's not like a planning session or anything like that. It's just they're having a good time. Now, the Boiler Room girls are these women who had been helping the Kennedy campaigns for various years, especially Bobby, but one of them goes all the way back to Jack, worked on the Jack Kennedy campaign. And so at a certain point, Mary Jo Kopechne wants to go home, and Teddy says, I'll drive you home. This is late. It's close to midnight. And he takes off in the sedan, just him and Mary Jo Kopechne. But for some reason, they do not drive anywhere near to where she's staying. They go in a completely different direction towards this place called Dyke Bridge. And so there's a long bridge that goes out into the water. And it's only about 8 feet of water, more or less. And this car hits a rub rail on the left-hand side, flips, goes on its back, and they're both in the car. We don't know exactly what happened. There are some things that are suggestive about it. A lot of people think that what happened was that Ted Kennedy was drunk and he wanted to have sex with this girl. And so he drove him out, and then he screwed up and he was a bad driver and he crashed the car because he was drunk. Mary Jo Kopechne did not drink, allegedly. Everyone says that she did not drink, which becomes important here in a minute. But so the car is upside down under the water. Ted manages to get out of the car. He then tries to go back and get Mary Jo out of the car unsuccessfully. After he can't do that, he then goes back to the place where they're having the party at, gets his two lawyers, Gargan and the other guy. I forget his name. I can never remember that guy's name. And both lawyers come out with him to do this water rescue of Mary Jo Kopechne, which apparently goes on for 2 or 3 hours. And they're never able to get her out. Now, that morning, Ted Kennedy wakes up 6, 7 a.m. and he's wandering around saying hello to all the partygoers. And everyone says that he's in a good mood and he's chipper and he's completely relaxed until the lawyers pull him out into a meeting and they tell him something, and he suddenly becomes very grave. So we don't know what happened, but one of his friends who was there suggested that Ted Kennedy was finding out about the whole situation from last night right then. And we don't know. We do know that Ted Kennedy had a bruise on his right mastoid, which maybe came from a club or something. I'm dubious about that particular theory because it's pretty hard to knock somebody out without killing them or giving them severe concussion. We're used to sort of movies, Batman or the Heart,
sure.
Something. You're always getting knocked out in the head. But if that happened,
they knock them out.
Yeah, you'd be having seizures the second time that ever happened to you. I think that's kind of unlikely, but he does have a bump that's consistent with somebody trying to whack him on the head. I think it's much more likely that if you were going to do something, you would use Seconal or something that would actually chemically put them to sleep rather than trying to whack somebody on the head with the stick. So we don't know. They finally get Mary Jo Kopechne out of the car. Now, Mary Jo did not drown. She suffocated. So when the car is upside down, there's a pocket of air in the car, right? And so Mary Jo is floating in that pocket of air. But eventually, if you run out of air, you can't breathe carbon dioxide, so you will die. And that's what happens to her. So she does not drown. She dies of suffocation. She has a little bit of blood froth in her mouth, which is also another curious thing. The full autopsy is never done. The inquest is very bizarre. If you get the transcripts of the trial of the inquest, when the judge is talking to Ted, Ted does not have very good answers to anything. I mean, because their first question is if this all happened, why didn't you go to the authorities? And he says, well, I meant to go to the authorities. Yeah, but why didn't you go to the authorities? That question never gets answered. So we don't know. So there's several things that I find very dubious. The thing that I find the most unbelievable is that if Ted Kennedy had gone back to this hotel, woken his attorneys up, and said, "You guys got to help me do this expedition to get Mary Jo out of the car," I do not believe that they would have done that. Okay, because they're lawyers.
Sure.
Ted says, "I got to get this body out of a car of Mary Jo." It's like, you're out of your mind.
Right.
You have to call the police, the fire department, whatever. We can't do this. So the idea that Teddy would then get these two guys to try and help him. Also, they are not water experts. They're not divers. They don't know what they're doing. So why would he do that? And then supposedly they did this for several hours, but then Teddy in the morning was able to control himself enough that he gave the impression of being relaxed to everyone else. That's very strange. I think the best explanation of that is that Ted, for some reason, does not know what exactly happened. Like as if he had been unconscious maybe the whole time. I mean, it's certainly possible. Now, the story he gives to the judge, like I say, is he's clearly lying. And the story makes no sense. And the judge kind of says that. Like, this doesn't make any sense. Which is why he got into a little bit of trouble, not very much considering that Mary Jo was dead. And there's never been a very good explanation as to why any of that happened. Like, what is going on? So I got interested in this because of a gentleman named Robert Cutler. Yeah, R.B. Cutler, a lot of my work, I try to do callbacks to certain researchers that are not always that well known anymore, whose work I find really terrific.
Right.
R.B. Cutler is one of them. R.B. Cutler was a brilliant draftsman who made these incredible drawings of various, about the Kennedy assassination, and also drawings of the incident that happened at Chappaquiddick. And in fact, Cutler hired an accident reconstructionist to go look at Dyke Bridge, because one of the curious things is that the car is allegedly only going 20 miles an hour. The car is going 20 miles an hour, hits a rub rail on the left, and then flips completely over. It seems kind of unlikely. The accident reconstructionist he hired suggested that the car would have to be going more like 40 miles an hour for that to actually happen, not 20, because 20, you don't have enough momentum to get yourself to flip over. And the investigation after this occurs is just as weird as the actual incident itself. And Cutler does all these great. He wrote a bunch of stuff about this, and he did some great research on it. But it's very hard for most people to get a hold of, because Cutler would publish his stuff in books that he himself made, and he might make 100 or 200 copies, something like that. I'm just lucky because Waco University here in Texas happens to have a huge repository of R.B. Cutler's books, which is how I got to read them all, about 20 years ago. I got to go through all this stuff. He also went on to Mae Brussels' radio program to talk about this as well. So you can look at that more. So we don't have a smoking gun. And we don't. It's not like we can say, well, there's somebody here who committed violence against. What we have is a lot of strange stories that don't really add up. But a couple of things that we do know is that E. Howard Hunt is one of the first people who goes down there to investigate. Literally that morning.
There was a report, though, that he was there earlier than that, though. Is that confirmed?
Yes, it's not confirmed.
It's not confirmed.
There is a report of that.
Right, okay.
I am not sure. It would not surprise me But Hunt is supposed to have been there like within 6 hours of the event, which is a little bit crazy. Like, who sends Hunt there, and how do you know that there's going to be something worth looking at, right?
Right.
The other thing that Hunt says, so when Hunt broke into Daniel Ellsberg's office, he had like a disguise kit and a voice modulator for his voice. But he said that was not given to him for the Ellsberg break-in. That was given to him to investigate Chappaquiddick.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
We will be right back.
Hey, Sean, I want to make sure that everybody knows about our Patreon. I know we mention it every once in a while on the show, but really important that people check out our Patreon. If you go to Patreon and search for That's Enough Out of You, or just click on the link in the description, you'll find we do an extra episode every week called The Speakeasy, and it's really usually just Sean and I kind of talking about the day's events, current events, and things like that. But a lot of exciting things. I mean, I know, Sean, you're constantly putting articles up there on our Patreon.
Yeah, and sometimes, Bill, we do bring on special guests. We had Dave Whelan on, we had Scranton Dave, and every now and then we bring Patreon members on. We've had different members, Scott Alfieri, Michael Pilch, Dan Hankey was on. So, there's an opportunity there if you want to come on the show with us. So there's a lot of things we're doing. Like you mentioned, Bill, the articles. I put articles up on a free site, but I also put articles on Patreon that's not available on the free site. We have a lot of times I put up future intel about guests that we have coming up and stuff that we have coming up on the podcast. And, we created a great community there, Bill. There's a lot of chat goes on there. There's a community chat and a lot of the comments back and forth. Just the Patreon members always have great insight. So it's a community, Bill, and it's an opportunity for people to join for a really good price, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, you can't beat it. You can certainly become a free member if you want to. There's also tiered levels with subscription amounts, and just for $1 that gets you everything. I mean, the $1 gets you everything, including our weekly show. There's other tiers. I think, Sean, what is there? A $3 tier?
$3, there's a $5, there's a $10. I mean, and there's a $50 if people could afford to give $50.
Yeah, I mean, totally up to you. Once you join, you can make that decision, and certainly, there's no commitment. I mean, you could join for a month or 2 months or whatever you want, and then you can switch your subscription around. Totally up to you. I mean, that's, people love Patreon for that reason. It really is. It makes it easy. It's kind of, however you want to do it, however you want to join. And we certainly appreciate anybody who joins our Patreon and supports the show, because we definitely, Sean, we're not getting rich off of this podcast, that's for sure. But we definitely, appreciate any support that we get from our listeners.
And, we also have our merchandise store. If people want to check out, we have the shirt that I have on now. We have mugs up there. We have cups, hats, anything you can do to help the podcast grow. We also have a bookshop up there, Bill, where all the authors that we have on our podcast, we have their books up. And it supports local bookstores, Bill. The money goes to local bookstores, a little bit to us, and then to the publisher and to the author. So it's a real good opportunity instead of buying Amazon and making
supporting billionaires.
Right, sure. There's an opportunity. And as far as Patreon, one last thing, Bill, if you want to join as a free member, we do put some stuff up there for the free members, and then if you like it and you want to upgrade, you can do that.
Absolutely. So definitely check out our Patreon. Like I said, there's a link in the description to our Patreon, or you can just go to Patreon and search for That's Enough Out of You, look for our logo, and just fill in the information and you can join. All right. That's it, Sean. We appreciate all of our Patreon members, and we hope that you guys will consider checking it out if you haven't joined. Thank you. Hey, Sean, before we move on, I just want to mention our sponsor, one of our sponsors, DK's Corner, located in Jessup, Pennsylvania. right on Cherry Street, 201 Cherry Street in Jessup, Pennsylvania. Sean, I had a cheesesteak, and I know the ads always mention the cheesesteaks, and we've had a few listeners comment on that. I actually just had one yesterday, and
I thought you were on a diet.
I am. But I had to, well, the thing is, at work now, we've been ordering from DK's, and I keep smelling. Everybody's ordering these cheesesteaks, and I keep smelling them. So yesterday I broke down, and I had to have one.
It's all right.
It's just, I'll tell you what, Sean, just delish. I love DK's Corner cheesesteaks. Dave makes everything himself there. Everything is so fresh. All the food he makes is just incredibly delicious. It's such a really a great menu too. I mean,
it is, Bill. He gets really creative with a lot of the specials he has.
Yeah.
He has really good stuff, and his pizza's fantastic, but he always has incredible specials, Bill.
And there's always different things there that you always have to make sure you check. Go on, look on Facebook, DK's Corner on Facebook, because he's always got different specials, different things. He's
constantly changing the menu.
Constantly, and that's what keeps it fresh, keeps everything good. So he has breakfast. He has these breakfast bowls in the morning. They're delicious. Everything, like I said, everything he makes is great. He's got kind of a unique cooler in there with different sodas and stuff like that, different drinks. So make sure you call or stop by in Jessup. Again, it's 201 Cherry Street in Jessup, Pennsylvania. If you're local here in Northeast Pennsylvania, make sure that you stop by and check out DK's Corner. Again, just delicious food, Sean. I know you order from there a lot too.
I order constantly from there, Bill, and so many times that I sent people there. My brother went there, loved it. I had other people. Nathan loves it there. It's just a great place. Sometimes I take it out. Sometimes I even sit there. It's really comfortable. But we get so many people, Bill, listeners and stuff, that said, "Oh, I went to DK's and it was great." I can't tell you how many people. We just had a question episode where people were talking about it. Just unbelievable place. So definitely check that out.
All right, definitely check out DK's Corner. Go to Facebook, look up DK's Corner. Again, he's located at 201 Cherry Street in Jessup, Pennsylvania. DK's Corner.
Brent says this. So you're like, well, what the hell's going on? The other person who goes to investigate is Tony Olasevich. Now, Tony Olasevich is not a name that most people are familiar with. So during the Watergate situation, there's that famous tape where John Dean tells Nixon, Hunt says he won't talk if we give him $1 million. And Nixon says, I know where we can get the money. Nixon does not say, this guy's lying, this guy's crazy, why does this guy think he can extort me? He doesn't say any of those things. Nixon says, I know where we can get the money. And then Hunt gets paid $219,000.
Wow.
By Tony Olasevich. So Tony Olasevich is the bag man that gets the money to E. Howard Hunt, and he's also one of the first investigators at the scene of Chappaquiddick.
Wow.
Yeah.
You mentioned John Dean there. Also on the tape, though, he talks about something about if Ted Kennedy knew the bear trap that he was walking into.
Yes.
Kind of got cut, right? So, I mean.
That is a very key moment. Yes, that is like 3 years after the fact. I think it's like 1972. Right. Dean is kind of musing. They're just talking about, if this happens, because he says, first of all, that Olasevich is an ex-New York City cop.
Right.
And they've been using Olasevich to investigate various things for Nixon. But then he says, if they're able to get back to Olasevich, then Chappaquiddick comes back with the vengeance. And if Ted Kennedy knew what kind of bear trap he was walking into.
Wow.
But he doesn't finish that thought, and that's it for the tape for that day. So either they said cool it, or they turned off the tape, or something. But that is the last thing as part of that conversation, when you think, well, if you said something like this, you'd think a conversation would be coming, but nothing comes.
And Olasevich, wasn't he also, he was bossy, right? The New York intelligence. And doesn't his name come up in the Malcolm X?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So, right. So he has all these connections. This guy's been a bad guy for a lot of years.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of links that you start to see when you start to compare the various assassinations and all this stuff that's going on. That's why I think you have to look at everything, including Malcolm X and MLK, because if you just look at the Kennedy assassination in isolation,
Right.
you'll never know what actually happened.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
You can come to the conclusion that Lyndon Johnson killed Kennedy, but that doesn't make any. Lyndon Johnson didn't then kill Bobby Kennedy and MLK, and it doesn't actually make any sense when you look at the whole thing as a continuum. And these people keep popping up.
Right.
Every time you look, you see, just what the hell is Tony Elasevich doing in this? And it's crazy.
What about Sturgis? Wasn't Sturgis rumored to be there too?
Sturgis as well. Yes. Wow. There are documents with Sturgis's commentary going back and forth and all this.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah, no, the thing is that I can't prove anything 100%, right? But what I can tell you is that none of this makes any sense. Like, why are they so excited about investigating this thing, so much so that they're willing to send two of their important people to investigate in person? Like, Hunt is like interviewing witnesses, or trying to anyway, with his, his red hair and his voice. Like, what the hell is this crap? But that's the way they rolled, So, I've always been fascinated with that whole thing, because there's also more in the Watergate tapes where they were talking about whether to give Bobby Kennedy Secret Service protection, and they are very upfront about it. They say, look, the problem is if we give him protection, then we're saying that, yes, you're a legitimate contender, but if we don't give him protection and he dies, then it's our fault. Yeah. So it's almost like they're in the planning stages for all this stuff.
Wow.
And that's one of the things that I think is what the 60s is about, because it's a removal of the Kennedys and a replacement of the Kennedys with Richard Nixon.
Yeah.
Nixon loses in 1960. He says he got cheated, and 64, no good. 68, now it's my time. Like, now I get to be president. And then all of a sudden he's got another damn Kennedy.
Yeah.
Right.
We got to get rid of this guy,
Right.
And then the very next year we got this new, it's just like, how the hell am I going to get rid of these Kennedys?
Yeah. Hey, Joe, for those who aren't as familiar with this case, what was Teddy charged with?
I cannot remember what the actual charge was, because it was it might have been just leaving the scene of an
Leaving the scene, I think it was.
It was just leaving the scene. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Because he didn't really serve any time.
No, I think it was just like a suspended sentence or something, and I think he just so there wasn't much. Very interesting that if he allegedly lied, in his testimony or whatever it was, and then if they thought he was responsible for the death of this woman, I mean, you'd think they would have charged him with something more than that. But
I mean, you'd think so, except that if you are because Ted Kennedy benefits from that as well as any politician.
Sure.
That high-level politicians aren't often asked to actually serve anything for their crimes.
Right. True. We know that.
At present, like, we haven't arrested anybody in the
nobody. Nobody, no politician.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, so that's a little, that was less surprising to me that he was able to get away with that.
Right.
And the question is was he lying, or was he simply confabulating because he did not know what happened?
Mm-hmm.
He's unconscious, but see, he's also aware. I got a girl in the car who's dead that I was in. like this screws up my political ambitions forever.
Right.
So I have to come up with something. I have to tell them something to get away with this, even if I don't know what happened.
You have a personal theory on what you think really happened?
I suspect that he was like given some kind of drug, and I suspect that it married Joe too, because they didn't do an autopsy.
Yeah.
But because Mary Jo did not struggle, she didn't make any noise. Nothing. Like, how is that possible? Like, if you flip the car over, you're gonna wake up if you're asleep.
Right.
But she didn't struggle. None of that happened. She just, died in a pocket of air.
Oh.
So very bizarre. And like I say, that everyone says she was a teetotaler. She did not drink. So that's what makes the most sense to me. I mean, I can't, like I say, I can't tell you that is what happened. But what I can tell you is that Richard Nixon and his cronies were super interested in the whole thing. And then John Dean makes this incredible statement, which says, bear traps are set by a person.
Right. Exactly.
They're not accidental.
The fact that Hunt is down there, I mean, it just stinks to high heaven.
It does. Anytime Howard Hunt is in the vicinity, you probably got a conspiracy going on.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. But
it's weird though, because I mean, despite this situation, he was one of the most beloved political figures of our time, and one of the longest serving also.
Yes.
So I mean, it didn't do a whole lot of damage to his political
career. To
career.
recover though from this, though, he was looked down upon for a long time, and then he started to make waves in the Senate.
Right.
Really.
Yeah, he was a good senator. I mean, Massachusetts loved him. I mean, I think for a while there was some thought that he might drop out of political life, period.
Right.
But it didn't happen. He stuck with it, and eventually, came away with his reputation more or less intact. It was always just this thing that you would go back to, that Chappaquiddick thing. That didn't look too good. And of course, Leo D'Amour wrote the book Senatorial Privilege, which basically is a hatchet job on Teddy Kennedy. So those books did come out anyway, and they even made a movie about it, which basically follows the premise of that. Teddy was this terrible guy who was trying to sleep with this girl. I don't think that passes muster.
No. To your knowledge, did anybody ever confront John Dean and ask him what he meant by that bear trap statement?
As far as I know, no.
I never seen anything.
No. I mean, John Dean, you don't want to get me going on John, but John Dean is not a hero. Okay.
Oh.
He was a liberal hero for so many years. It's like he's a co-conspirator, man.
Yeah.
Dean is as dirty as any of those guys,
Yeah. It's like these mob guys, when they rat out, they're not. That doesn't make them a hero.
Right. They're not. That doesn't. There's a cancer in the presidency. Like, no shit. I mean, you don't get a prize for that after the fact.
Right.
After you've already served this guy and you've seen all the criminality that's going on. I mean, it's a joke. Yeah, John Dean should. I would have loved to have talked to him, but of course, I don't think he would have answered any of my questions either.
No.
Yeah, he's a sharp guy.
Yeah. So let's move on, Bill. You got something before I move on?
No, let's keep going.
Let's move on to Malcolm X.
Oh, okay.
At what point, we know Malcolm had a lot of enemies, but it's really when Malcolm starts to really become a threat, to the national security structure. That's when his real problems start to happen. And we know that, de Gaulle didn't even let him into France because he was afraid the CIA was going to kill him over there.
Yeah, I was going to say that the key thing is why.
Right.
Yeah. He knew he did not want Malcolm to be killed in France, and then blamed for it by the CIA. But he was very concerned that was going to happen, and it makes sense. Malcolm had always been obviously a target for COINTELPRO,
Sure.
the Black Messiah.
Yeah.
But you're right. In 1964 is when things really change, because that's when Malcolm goes to Mecca, and all of a sudden his language changes, and he says, I don't believe in the white devil anymore. I ate food with my brother, and my brother was white. So it's not just that anymore. So you can't pin this whole thing on Malcolm. Suddenly he has the opportunity of maybe having a broader coalition than he's ever had. Right.
Yeah.
The other thing that Malcolm is doing at 64 is he's going to these various countries as a kind of quasi ambassador, typically enemies of the United States, but he's making friends.
Nasser.
Yes, and in fact, the AG, the one from the Kennedy assassination, actually, can't think of what his name is now.
Oh, Clark.
Which one?
Was it Clark?
Not Ramsey Clark. I'll think of it.
Katzenbach?
Which one?
Katzenbach?
Yes, Katzenbach.
Katzenbach, okay.
Katzenbach wanted the government to pursue Malcolm X for prosecution under the Logan Act. There's an act that says you're not allowed to, I can't make a treaty with France. Or you're not allowed to make treaties with other countries. But Malcolm X wasn't doing that. I mean, it's a real stretch. But they were just looking for ways to try and come down on Malcolm. And eventually, in February of 1964, they end up killing Malcolm. And actually, one of the most, incredible things about the assassination of Malcolm X is that we know the guy who did it. And that guy, I haven't checked recently, but until at least 10 years ago, he was still alive. And he was living unmolested after he killed Malcolm X. And in fact, he had gotten, a few years later, he got arrested as part of a bank robbery. But he had a separate attorney, which got him off, and the other guys that were involved in bank robbery went to jail. So he was protected before and after the assassination of Malcolm. Yeah. There was a movie, I guess 5 or 6 years, the documentary on Netflix.
Yeah, I seen that one. Yeah.
Which it starts out like it's going to be okay, and then it becomes a bunch of junk because he's trying to say that the other Muslims killed Malcolm. It's like they might have been involved, but they're not the ones who were actually. They're not setting this up.
No,
it's like saying the mob killed.
That COINTELPRO too was trying to push the divide, between the Muslim Brotherhood and. We know that's what they do, and that's how they, try to instigate from inside. But also Malcolm, he was poisoned when he was in Egypt, right?
Yes, he was. He ate, had got some food that made him really sick in Egypt, and it's. I believe that was another assassination attempt. Malcolm was beleaguered, and I think they felt like because Malcolm was a scary black man, in quotes, that they could be more brazen about how they kill him. I mean, you think about how eventually Malcolm got killed. There's no real conspiracy. There's a guy that shoots him in the middle of God and everybody at the Audubon Ballroom.
Lower protection, you get the protection out of the way, and you kind of let it happen is what really happened in that.
Yes. And what
about
there are specific members who are working with the FBI.
Right. And what about the memo? I think it was a memo from the FBI from Hoover that he sent to Richard Helms. It got to Helms' desk where basically he called Malcolm a national security threat.
Yeah.
Because that's where anything that comes across Helms' desk that somebody's called a national security threat, we know what the next step is going to be. We know
exactly. Well, and everybody knew Hoover's attitude, let's say, permeated to everyone. Everyone was quite aware the fact that Hoover did not like all of these black nationalists. He didn't like the Black Panthers. He didn't, he thought these were all terrorists, essentially, pretty much because they're black. And Hoover was very entrenched in what you might call white supremacy, which I always thought was interesting. For it's not like he was a paragon for gay rights, because he was gay. But he has all this hatred for black folks. It's like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah, I was dead in the COINTELPRO. I mean, it really targeted the civil rights. I mean, we got a standalone episode coming up on Hoover, and we cover all that. And William Sullivan talks a lot about that in his memoirs. The director, he says all the things, that he was told to go after these guys like Malcolm and Martin Luther King, and make up a lot of stuff, a lot of disinformation. He did the same thing with the Kennedys too.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if he publish that. He was working on something when he got shot.
Right. What he was going to do is he was working on an autobiography of Hoover, and he met a friend, and he told a friend that he was kind of worried. He told a friend that if something happens to him, don't believe it because he was murdered.
Yeah.
And he goes on to Hunting. He gets killed in a hunting accident.
Yeah, mistaken for
where he was supposed to testify. So it's that's really suspicious. But yeah, I mean it's crazy. But let's anything you want to say on Malcolm before we move on to MLK?
I was also going to say that if you're interested in that whole thing, Bill Turner was an FBI agent.
Right.
Who left the FBI because of COINTELPRO. He got sick of it, and he ended up writing for Ramparts, which is amazing, and helping Jim Garrison. And his book, I think it may be called Rearview Mirror. It's his memoirs of being in the FBI, which is quite interesting for anybody who's also interested in just COINTELPRO in general. Yeah, I really liked Bill Turner. He's
really good. He's really good. So, Billy, you got anything before I move on?
Oh, no, keep going, Sean.
Let's talk about Martin Luther King.
Okay.
So, the first thing I want to ask you, what do you think of William Pepper's work on this and his book?
Oh, it's really good. I don't go all the way with Pepper.
Right.
Pepper, he made some mistakes. Obviously. But in general, I mean, he did fantastic work. I mean, the fact that he even got that trial going,
right?
And the evidence that came forward in that trial is absolutely amazing.
Right.
With the Reverend, was it Billy Kyle that said he moved out of the way so the sniper could get a clear shot?
Yeah.
Okay, and they're like, what? Can you repeat that?
Really.
What the hell? So no, I think Pepper did great work, and of course Pepper, I'm sure you know the story of Pepper, knew Dr. King, and
right, sure did.
And in some ways, I mean, you could make the argument that Pepper got him killed because MLK was inspired by his article in Ramparts to then incorporate the Vietnam War actions, which he does, very famous, April 4th, 1967, exactly 1 year before he gets murdered, he gives this great speech.
Not a coincidence.
Yeah.
And of course, that's really when, again, the national security structure, he becomes an enemy to them once he speaks out against the Vietnam War. And, one of the interesting things is how the media really portrays Martin Luther King after that. Like they really came down on him heavy, and people don't understand it today unless they go back and read, because I wasn't alive, Billy was alive. But I mean, if you go back and you read the way that the media came down on him and really attacked him for coming out against the Vietnam War, it's really, it's really surprising. Very be surprising, but it is to a lot of people.
Yeah, I tell people that now, they don't believe me.
Yeah.
Go look at the newspapers, what they wrote. We all think of Martin Luther King as a hero, but when he was alive, the media said he was essentially a terrorist. This guy's crazy. And he wasn't doing anything. He's peaceful protests.
Right.
What is the danger? but it was so much of a danger that they, infiltrated with Merrill McCullough.
Talk about McCullough, because he's fascinating, because he's an FBI informant standing right there. He's the famous picture. He's right there next to Martin Luther King, and eventually he goes on to the CIA.
Yep. Well, he says that he goes on from the CIA. I mean, the suggestion is that he was already.
Right, of course.
But yeah, he was already an FBI informant. He had infiltrated the
Invaders, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, but they were sort of like the Black Panthers.
Right.
But yeah, he's there to make sure that King is dead. He's in that famous photograph. He's literally sitting over King, like making sure. Oh yeah, we got him.
And King's making a lot of enemies in the government. He's making a lot of, not just with the civil rights, like you said, when he speaks out against the Vietnam War, now he's really making enemies. And
Yep.
Let's talk about a lot of the problems with because the official story again is ridiculous. And James L. Ray, let's talk about him as a patsy, because a lot of people don't realize, how he was set up. And then I want to get into a little bit on the ballistics problems, if we could.
Sure. Yeah, James Earl Ray. It's funny. We actually know a lot about James Earl Ray because of Pepper. They sort of became friends, over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And he had come from it was a criminal family. I mean, they were guys who knocked over liquor stores and
small time crime.
Try to hustle. Yeah. But he was never a murderer. And they've tried to say that he had was also in the Klan, and it always, although there doesn't seem to be any evidence for that. Although there was a terrible book that was written by a couple of JFK researchers, which tried to put the KKK theory into the world. Can't think of it. It's a terrible book, By the Grace of God or something like that. And Ray was not a he was not a murderer. He was a petty criminal, and he's not the guy that you would get to assassinate anybody, even if he was a murderer. I mean, it's not like he was an expert on weapons or any. I got to interview his brother about 12, 14 years ago, and he confirmed all this stuff. I mean, we were just, we would do crimes, but it's not, we weren't political. Like, we don't have any of that stuff. And of course, the story that eventually gets told, depends on James Earl Ray shooting out of this window, but he has to stand on top of the bathtub.
Yeah,
because of the way
public bathroom too, which is ridiculous.
It's crazy. You're standing on top of the bathroom with the rifle. You're in this weird position, and that's why if you go to the Civil Rights Museum, I don't know if this is still true though. It was this way about 12 years ago when I went to go see it. They put a glass partition so you can't get to the actual window.
Wow.
So you can't actually see how ridiculous the shot is.
Yeah.
So it's absurd, and of course right after he allegedly kills Dr. King, he then runs out in the street, throws the gun and all his stuff, his underwear, his prison radio, all on the ground before he leaves. Like, why would he do this? Like,
exactly.
Yeah. And I always like to tell people too, like, because again, it's another thing that doesn't really make sense. How did James Earl Ray get arrested? He was arrested by Scotland Yard.
Yeah.
What?
Exactly.
After evading this FBI manhunt, he gets like, what the hell's going on? And of course, he tells the story of this guy's giving him money to go to Canada first to get 5 different IDs that all look like him, which in 1968 that's kind of hard to do. If you're not connected to the government. And then he's arrested by Scotland Yard, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And of course, then shortly afterwards, the brushes are cut down.
Yes,
got them there. Very suspicious. And then there's all kind of problems with the ballistics evidence. And like you said, the shot is really like just impossible. I mean, I guess if you're really skilled, maybe you can make it. But the thing is, there's no evidence that James L. Ray was skilled with a rifle like that. So it's the to me the argument is mute.
Yeah, I mean, it's shooting a guy in the throat from the distance that they're at, and you can see when you go to the Civil Rights Museum, you can more or less see where King was in relation to that window, and that is not an easy shot at all. It's also, I mean, I've heard the different people say different things about this, and I'm not a ballistics expert, so but the angle of where he's shooting from does not appear to line up with
Right.
where Malcolm gets. I know Judge Joe Brown said that.
Judge Joe Brown, he's the best in that. Yeah, he did
Yeah,
a great job with the ballistics.
yeah. He was, he was, and for anybody who doubts that, I mean, Judge Joe Brown was accepted by the court as a ballistics expert. Yeah.
And of course, the civil trial comes out, and it's against this fellow Jowers, and of course they say that they give a lot of the blame to the government.
Yeah.
Complicity in this.
Yep. Yeah. They gave, what did they give? 30% to
Jowers, and then like
the
70
Showers and 70% to the government, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is amazing. And the other thing is that the media doesn't report this.
No.
So you only had, I believe, maybe one media person even I think Jim Douglas was one of
Jim
the
Douglas.
that
It
was
was
there
Jim.
every day. And here you have the civil rights leader gunned down, you have a civil trial, and you don't have the media covering it. That should tell you everything you need to know about where their orders are coming from.
That's the truth. And then after it happened, they do report it, and then this happened, and then they forgot about it completely.
Yeah.
It gets 1 minute on the nightly news, and then we're not going to report on this anymore.
It's unbelievable.
It's crazy. Yeah, and it's unfortunately it's what you grow to accept after you've looked into all these different cases.
Right.
There's such an easy pattern of what these people are doing and what they're covering up.
It's terrible. It really is. And like you said, everything really does tie in together. You can't look at them all in isolation. And I think the last one I want to talk about is one that, should be called the fifth assassination of the 60s, but it's not really talked about a lot. And that's Freddie Hampton of the Black Panthers.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt this was an assassination. I mean, the evidence now, I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It wasn't a shootout like they claimed. The official story is just ridiculous. But talk about that, because again, here's another time where he becomes a threat, and really, Hoover, but I think the national security structure too, because again, he's got that Rainbow Coalition, and here he is.
Mhm.
He's forming this with young Puerto Rican men and young white men, the young patriots, and all of a sudden, this Rainbow Coalition is frightening to the hardcore right wingers that are in power, people like Hoover.
Yeah, and he's educating kids too.
Yes.
In the breakfast programs. Yeah, Fred Hampton is kind of one of my heroes. I'm always amazed. Became the head of the Black Panther Party chapter in Chicago at the age of 18.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy. Yeah, and they killed him when he was 21. I mean, he
such a dynamic speaker for how young he was.
Yeah, he was a great speaker. I love to hear him do his thing. Yeah, he was wonderful, and I've always talked about Fred Hampton as an assassination without a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Because he was young and he was black. They just went to his house at 3 a.m. after he'd been given Seconal and shot him in the head while he was asleep. And how crazy is that? It was so bad that even Ramsey Clark was on our side on that one.
Yeah.
Who was not our friend on the Kennedy assassination, but Fred Hampton's like, they determined, I think there was 99 bullets going in and maybe one coming out.
Which would have been like a reflex. The guy was in the chair, he gets hit, and it just goes into the ground. It was just like a reflex shot.
Exactly. And it would have been Mark Clark, I think, because it was, because Hampton was out. And the treasurer of the BPP in Chicago was an FBI informant, of course. So Hoover had his guy inside the Black Panther Party. In fact, that was one of his best friends. Turns out to have been working for the FBI.
That was O'Neill, right?
Yeah.
Foreman. And there's also information that he may have drugged Hampton So that's why
Yes.
he was out. He was unconscious when the shooting started.
Yes, for some reason that seems to be disputed now. I've never thought that it was based on reports that Seconal was involved, but I've seen that disputed now. But regardless of what it was, he was asleep when he was shot.
Yeah, and O'Neill. We know O'Neill was involved because he's the one that gave the map of his apartment.
Yes,
He gave the layout.
he drew it out for the assassins.
Right, right.
Chicago police. I mean, yeah. Fred Hampton's an amazing, amazing person. When I first wrote an article about Hampton 15 years ago or so, his brother sent me a nice email that he had showed it to his mother, and they both really liked it. I was like, it's like, wow, that was one of the best messages I ever got in doing this stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he's gone now too.
So you can see how the network kind of, you have the FBI with the COINTELPRO. They're attacking these civil rights leaders, but they're working, with police department intelligence. You see the CIA, how their intelligence network is involved, more at the national security level. And you see how they all work together. And now these assassinations, I mean, they're really connected. You can't just look at them as isolated events.
Right.
But how do you feel like, starting with the JFK assassination, if you would, and then, how does that go into the mess that we're in today? Like, because to me, like I always said, when they killed JFK, they didn't just murder the man; they murdered the office of the presidency. So the damage that was done and the mess that we're in today, I think you could trace that back to November 22nd.
Very much so. Very much so. That is it's kind of the first drop that also tells future presidents where the boundaries are. It's like, if you're not going to do these things, we can get rid of you. So, and every president we've had since Kennedy has been in some way bought and sold.
Sure.
We haven't had a great president since John Kennedy.
And you haven't had any that had their own domestic and foreign.
No.
Policy.
And regardless if you're a Democrat or Republican,
Sure.
foreign policy is the same.
It's the same. It doesn't change. And that should tell you everything about it. That should tell you everything.
That should tell you that the president is not the guy calling the shots.
Right.
Even the current idiot, it's not like he's making these decisions either.
No, he's a puppet.
Yeah, very much so. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. In fact, if you don't have to use this if you don't want to, but do you know who the first Jewish senator was in the United States?
I don't offhand.
His name was David Levy Yulee. He was born in 1810 on St. Thomas Island.
Wow.
That is the island right next to Little St. James, Epstein Island. It's where Epstein used to pick people up and fly them over to his island. So he was born into the Barbary Coast slave trade that was going on during that period. And he eventually joined the Confederacy. So during the Civil War, he was a Confederate.
Wow.
He was also helped Jefferson Davis escape and was charged with treason. But he only served 9 months, and Ulysses Grant got him out of jail.
Wow.
But that's very intriguing. I just came across that the other day. I was like, holy cow.
No, I didn't know that. Wow. Interesting. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah, 200 years ago.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
The Epstein thing is like, more people should be upset about that. I mean, I actually had to stop reading the stuff. It was so disturbing.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it's unbelievable. The words can't even explain it. It's so bad.
Yeah, and a lot of researchers, I don't think you'll mind. Ed Curtin and I used to talk about this stuff, and we call it the weirdness, because whenever you do this kind of research, there's like 10% where you're getting into like, what the hell is going on? Like it doesn't really make sense, and maybe it's a cult, and I've never really written about it much, but I knew what was happening on a large scale. We didn't know the individual details until now, but yeah. This has been going on for a long time.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Joe, we appreciate you coming on with us and spending some time with us today.
Sure.
This was great. I mean, we covered a lot of ground here in just an hour.
Yeah, that was a lot of stuff. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
We appreciate it, Joel. Thank you. We covered a lot of the big picture stuff, and it ties into what's going on today. So I think it's all important.
Absolutely. No, well, it's good talking to you again. Sorry about my voice, but this is how it is.
Hey, no problem, Joe. Thank you very much again.
Thank
we
you,
appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Bill. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Take care.
All right.
That's Enough Out of You podcast is executive produced and written by Bill Rader and Sean Kane and edited by Bill Rader. The That's Enough Out of You podcast and logo are exclusive property of Bags of Chicken, LLC. Any rebroadcast, retransmission, or accounts of this podcast without the express written consent of Bags of Chicken, LLC is prohibited. So don't even try it.